inside your body right now, there is this incredible fiber optic network. It's made of liquid crystals, and it conducts electricity at the speed of light.
Which is, hard to wrap your head around at first.
Yeah, totally. And if you are currently sitting hunched over a keyboard, or I don't know, if you've been dealing with this unexplained chronic ache in your lower back or your shoulder, there is a very good chance that internal network is acting like a broken battery.
Right. It's literally trapping thousands of microscopic electrical shocks right there in your tissue.
Exactly. You stretch, you rest, maybe you even go get a deep tissue massage, but that deep pulling sensation, it just keeps coming back.
And if you're nodding your head right now, listening to this, you are definitely not alone.
No, not at all. It's incredibly common.
And the wild part is the culprit might not be your muscles or your bones. It might be something completely different.
Yeah, it's a tissue that, for decades, traditional anatomy classes used to literally scrape away and throw in the trash.
Wait, really? They just threw it away? Yeah, medical students were actually taught to view it as like the useless biological packing peanuts of the human body. They would hack right through it and throw it in a bucket just so they could look at the stuff they thought was important. The organs, the bones, the muscles.
That is wild.
But the scientific consensus has dramatically flipped on this.
Right.
We now understand that this discarded tissue is arguably the most important, highly sensitive communication system in the human body.
So today, the mission of this deep dive is to explore that hidden electrical network inside you. It's called your fascia. And we have an incredible, towering stack of sources in front of us today.
We really do. Some fascinating stuff.
Yeah, we are looking at cutting-edge biophysics preprints on something called the fascial capacitor model. We are pulling from quantum biology, cellular mechanics, and we're even looking at how all of this modern biophysics maps almost flawlessly onto the ancient wisdom of traditional Chinese medicine.
Which is just a huge paradigm shift.
It really is. So our goal today is twofold. First, we're going to figure out how your fascia actually stores electrical charge and, by extension, how it traps chronic pain. And second, we are going to build a highly specific, actionable daily schedule of diet, movement, and habits so you can optimize your fascial conductivity.
And doing this requires a profound shift in perspective. Like for a long time, if you had pain, you just looked at the muscle.
Right. You have a knot, you massage the muscle.
Exactly. But the reality is that your muscles are mostly just dumb engines following orders. Your fascia is the intelligent liquid crystal web that wraps those engines.
The intelligent web. I like that.
Yeah, it dictates our cellular health,
Yeah.
our physical mobility, and as we'll see later, even our emotional well-being. So if you want to get out of pain, you have to stop looking at the hardware and start looking at the body's electrical wiring.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into how to fix the pain, we really need to understand what this web actually is. Because we hear the word fascia thrown around a lot, right?
Oh, constantly. Usually in fitness circles.
Yeah. Usually right before a personal trainer hands you this brutal, knobby foam roller and tells you to roll out your IT band until you cry. But what are we actually made of here? Like, what is the physical substance of fascia?
So fascia is a three-dimensional continuous web of connective tissue. And when I say continuous, I really mean it wraps every single muscle, bone, nerve, artery, and organ in your body.
Yeah.
From the crown of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes.
Like a full body suit.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you were to magically dissolve every other tissue in your body, bones, muscles, organs, your fascial network would still remain. And it would look exactly like you.
That is slightly terrifying, but also amazing.
Right. Anatomically, it is primarily constructed from three things. First, you have collagen fibers, which provide this incredible tensile strength.
Okay, so that's like the structural scaffolding.
Exactly. Second, you have elastin fibers, which, give the tissue its ability to stretch and recoil.
Makes sense. Strength and stretch.
Right. But third, and this is key, these fibers aren't just floating in empty space. They are embedded in something called the ground substance.
The ground substance. That sounds like a sci-fi movie. What is that actually made of?
It's a gel-like viscous fluid made mostly of water and glycosaminoglycans. And the most important of those is hyaluronic acid.
Wait, hyaluronic acid? Isn't that the primary ingredient in those incredibly expensive anti-aging skincare serums?
The very same.
No way.
Yeah. In your skin, it retains moisture and keeps things plump. But in your fascia, it acts as a crucial, slick lubricant. When your fascia is healthy, this ground substance allows the various layers of your muscles and tissues to glide over one another with virtually zero friction.
So it's basically biological motor oil.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
But what is truly mind-bending about this web is how deep it actually goes. It doesn't just wrap around your muscles like a sausage casing, it penetrates them.
How deep are we talking here?
We are talking about a micromyofascial system. There's some incredible research in our sources today from Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose. They've shown that this fascial network doesn't stop at the exterior of the cell.
Wait, it goes inside the cell?
Yes, it actually penetrates cell walls, connecting directly to the fluid-filled microtubules that make up the cytoskeleton inside your individual cells.
Okay, wait, I need to visualize this. So this web goes from the thick white casing on the outside of my bicep, down through the muscle fibers, through the actual membrane of the cell, all the way down into the internal microscopic scaffolding of the cells themselves.
That is the exact mechanical reality of your body.
Wow.
It means that a pull on the macro level, say, you reach your arm up high to grab a cup from the top shelf, is mechanically transmitted all the way down into the nucleus of your cells. The physical tension literally reaches your DNA.
That is, I mean, that completely changes how I think about stretching.
It should. But here is the most crucial part for our deep dive today, and really the concept that unlocks everything else we are going to discuss about pain and healing. Fascia is piezoelectric.
Piezoelectric. Okay, I know that term from things like quartz watches or those clicky barbecue lighters.
The barbecue lighters are a great example.
Yeah, you squeeze a tiny crystal inside the lighter, the pressure creates a spark, and it ignites the gas. But how does that apply to human tissue?
What's fascinating here is that the collagen in your fascia functions structurally almost exactly like a quartz crystal. Piezoelectricity literally means electricity resulting from pressure.
Okay.
So when you stretch, twist, or compress your fascia through movement, the mechanical deformation of those collagen fibers physically separates the electric centers of neutrality within the tissue.
So squeezing the tissue makes a spark.
Exactly. It generates a measurable bioelectrical charge. Collagen is basically a biological semiconductor. It is designed by evolution to move electrons at the speed of light throughout your body.
So let me see if I'm tracking this. If I'm understanding this correctly, my connective tissue isn't just biological bubble wrap. It is basically a combination of a wet battery and a massive fiber optic cable network.
Yes. And to take that fiber optic cable analogy even further, think about what happens when a cable is bent or frayed.
The signal degrades, you get bad internet.
Exactly. In your body, the ground substance, which is heavily hydrated, acts as a reservoir of electrons. That's the wet battery part. The highly structured crystalline collagen fibers act as the fiber optic cables conducting that charge.
Wow, okay.
This completely redefines why movement is so vital for human beings. Your physical movements literally generate the electricity that charges your body's batteries.
So just walking around is plugging myself in?
Every single time you take a step, breathe deeply, or twist your spine, you are generating an electrical current that communicates with the rest of your body, signaling your cells to repair, grow, and function optimally.
Which brings us to one of the most fascinating cross-disciplinary connections in our sources today. Because, traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, has been talking about an energy network flowing through the body for thousands of years.
Right, the meridian system.
Yeah, the meridian system. And the energy flowing through it is called qi, or qi. In Western medicine, we've historically dismissed this completely because, well, if you cut open a body on an operating table, you don't see glowing energy lines.
Right, you just see tissue and blood.
Exactly. But our sources point out that modern fascial anatomy maps almost perfectly onto these ancient meridian lines.
It really is an incredible convergence of ancient observational wisdom and modern biophysics. For instance, in modern fascial anatomy, there is a continuous track of connective tissue called the superficial back line.
Okay, where is that?
It runs from the plantar fascia at the bottom of your feet, up the back of your calves, over your hamstrings, up the entirety of your spine, and it physically pulls over the top of your scalp all the way to your forehead.
So it's one long mechanical cable.
Yes. Anatomists only recently mapped this as one continuous mechanical line. Yet, it aligns beautifully with the bladder meridian in TCM, which has been mapped for millennia. The deep front line of fascia maps to the kidney and liver meridians.
So, wait, they were mapping these fascial planes without microscopes or scalpels, just by observing how tension and sensation moved through the body.
Exactly. And researchers like Dr. Daniel Keown suggest that qi is not some mystical, unmeasurable woo-woo force. Qi can be scientifically understood as this exact bioelectric activity we've been talking about.
So qi is piezoelectricity.
Yes. It is the piezoelectric charge flowing through the structured extracellular water of your fascial planes.
That makes so much sense when you frame it that way. Healthy fascia is this beautifully conductive electrical grid that charges up and distributes energy when we move properly. But, that begs the obvious question. What happens when things go wrong?
And they go wrong a lot.
Yeah, like what happens when I sit at a desk for 10 hours a day staring at a screen, or when I deal with chronic emotional stress, or if I suffer a physical injury?
That is where the entire system starts to break down. And it leads us directly into the biophysics of why we experience chronic pain. Because when you lack movement, or when you subject the tissue to chronic, repetitive, poor posture, the fascia loses its hydration.
So the wet battery dries out.
Exactly.
Mm.
That hyaluronic acid we talked about, the slick, slippery lubricant in the ground substance, it stops being a lubricant. Because of the lack of varied movement and fluid pumping, it hyperaggregates. The molecules literally clump together.
Oh, that sounds gross.
It is. It becomes thick, sticky, and highly dense. The layers of fascia essentially glue themselves together. In the clinical literature, we call this fascial stacking.
Fascial stacking. Okay, so the layers that are supposed to glide smoothly are now glued tight. This brings us to what I think is probably the most compelling paper in our stack today. It's a groundbreaking biophysics preprint by researchers Kimura and Kobayashi.
Yes, their work is revolutionary.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting. They are detailing something called the fascial capacitor model. They're arguing that this sticky, densified, glued-together fascia isn't just mechanically stiff, it is literally acting like an electrical capacitor, trapping the charge we just talked about.
To understand this mechanism, we have to look really closely at the microstructure. Morphometric analysis, which is just the quantitative measurement of the form of biological structures, shows that deep fascia is built in distinct layers.
Like a layer cake.
Yeah, exactly. You have sublayers of incredibly dense collagen, and they are separated by thinner layers of loose connective tissue where that hyaluronic acid lives. Kimura and Kobayashi realized that this biological structure is physically and functionally identical to a multilayer ceramic capacitor, or MLCC.
Okay, I am definitely not an electrical engineer. I know an MLCC is something you would find on the circuit board of my smartphone, but how does a capacitor actually work, and how does my lower back mimic a smartphone part?
It's actually a pretty simple concept. The basic principle of a capacitor is that you have two conductive layers separated by an insulating layer, which is called the dielectric.
A dielectric. Got it.
Its entire job is to store electrical energy. In your electronics, the conductive layers are metal, and the dielectric might be ceramic. But in your body, the dense collagen sublayers act as the conductive electrodes. And that densified, sticky, dehydrated hyaluronic acid acts as the insulator, the dielectric.
So the glue becomes an insulator.
Yes. In healthy hydrated fascia, when you move and generate a piezoelectric charge, that charge dissipates in nanoseconds. It just flows freely through the water, communicating with the rest of the body.
Right, the key flows.
Exactly. But in stacking fascia, the sticky hyaluronic acid layer becomes an incredibly effective electrical insulator. It dramatically extends what physicists call the resistance-capacitance time constant.
Meaning the charge can't flow, it just hits a wall and gets trapped right there in the tissue.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You are still moving. You are still breathing, shifting in your chair, generating electricity through your daily micro movements. But the electricity hits that glued layer and has absolutely nowhere to go.
Okay.
It accumulates. You are literally building up and storing a continuous electrical field inside your tissues.
That is wild. You're saying that the knot in my upper shoulder is quite literally trapped static electricity.
That's exactly what it is.
But I need to connect the dots here. How does trapped static electricity equal the sensation of burning, aching, sharp pain? Like, why does my brain interpret an electrical field as an ache?
It all comes down to the nerve endings. Deep fascia is incredibly innervated. It is densely populated with sensory receptors and free nerve endings. When you have this trapped continuous electrical field, it begins to act on the voltage-sensitive elements of these free nerve endings.
So it's shocking the nerves.
The electrical field is literally shocking the nerve, yes, and at the exact same time, the mechanical stiffness of this stacked glued tissue physically pulls and yanks on the nerve endings, gating what we call piezo 1 and piezo 2 tension channels.
Hold up, gating a tension channel. That sounds like a medieval castle defense. What does gating a channel actually mean on a cellular level?
Good analogy. Imagine the membrane of your nerve cell has tiny microscopic doors. Those are the channels. They allow ions like calcium and sodium to flow in, which tells the nerve to fire a pain signal to the brain.
Okay, so open doors mean pain.
Right. And in these piezo 1 and piezo 2 channels, the doors are mechanically controlled. They're literally tethered to the fascial web. So when the sticky fascia pulls tight, it physically yanks the doors open. The ions flood in, and the nerve fires.
So the nerve is being violently attacked on two fronts. It's being electrically shocked by the trapped capacitor charge, and the physical doors of its cells are being violently yanked open by this sticky, dehydrated tissue.
Exactly. That dual activation causes something called spontaneous electrical activity, or SEA. The nerve fires continuously, sending a relentless, non-stop barrage of pain signals to your spinal cord and your brain. This is why you feel chronic pain, or a constant pulling sensation, or why your muscles automatically guard and tense up. It's a total revelation, because it means the muscle isn't actually the root problem. The muscle is merely a victim, reacting to the trapped electrical field in the fascial casing that wraps around it.
And we really can't ignore the emotional component here either, because we have research in our stack from Dr. Robert Schleip, who is one of the absolute pioneers of fascia research, and he views fascia as an emotional organ.
It really does, yeah.
If this tissue is trapping electrical charge from physical stress, like sitting at a desk, could it also be trapping the physical imprint of emotional stress?
The clinical evidence strongly suggests it does. Our autonomic nervous system, the system that controls our unconscious bodily functions, is intimately physically woven into the fascial network.
Like our fight or flight response.
Exactly. When we experience emotional trauma, anxiety, or chronic life stress, our sympathetic nervous system kicks into fight or flight mode. This neurological response triggers specialized cells in the fascia, called fibroblasts, to contract and stiffen.
So stress physically tightens the web.
Right. And if that trauma or chronic stress goes unresolved, the fascia remains in this state of continuous hypervigilance. The biological capacitor stays charged. The tissue literally becomes a biological hard drive, storing the physical imprint of emotional distress in the form of stiffened collagen and trapped electricity.
That makes so much sense. This is exactly why somatic therapies, deep tissue work, or even yoga often lead to profound emotional releases and crying. People just burst into tears on the table.
Yes. When you finally release the physical tension and melt the glue in the fascia, you are discharging that stored emotional energy.
Okay, so we have firmly established that chronic pain, stiffness, and tension are essentially biological batteries that have been overcharged, insulated, and they can't dissipate their energy. The obvious next question is, how do we discharge the battery?
We have to find a way to short-circuit it.
Let's look at the clinical protocols for immediate symptom relief. If I am in absolute agony right now, what can a clinician do?
In modern clinical settings, practitioners use physical interventions like ultrasound-guided fascial hydrorelease, dry needling, or traditional acupuncture. And while these might seem very different culturally or historically from a biophysical perspective, they are doing the exact same mechanical thing. They are providing a spark.
A spark, like jumping a car battery.
Very similar. When a clinician inserts a stainless steel needle into these densified stacked layers of fascia, it creates an immediate short circuit. The metal needle physically bridges the insulated sticky layers, connecting the conductive collagen layers.
Okay, so it connects the positive and negative terminals.
Right. And because the sharp microscopic geometry of the needle tip, it concentrates the ambient electric field by a massive factor, anywhere from 10 to 30 times. Furthermore, the sheer physical friction of the metal needle moving through the dense tissue generates what is called a triboelectric charge.
Triboelectric, is that like rubbing a balloon on your hair to make it stick to the wall?
Exactly like rubbing a balloon on your hair. It's electricity generated by friction. In the body, the friction the needle can generate up to plus or minus 6 volts.
6 volts? That doesn't sound like much.
Well, 6 volts might not sound like a lot when you think of a wall outlet. But on a cellular level, where nerves operate in tiny millivolts, a 6-volt charge is a massive lightning strike.
So you stick a metal needle into the glued shoulder, it bridges the gap, acts like a lightning rod, generates friction electricity, and boom, short circuit. What does that actually look like in the room when a patient is lying on the table?
It results in a massive, instantaneous discharge of that trapped electrical field. Clinically, this is observed as a local twitch response, or LTR. The patient's muscle band will literally visibly twitch, jump, or flutter uncontrollably for a second.
I've seen videos of that. The muscle just violently hops.
Yes, that twitch is not just a reflex. It is the macroscopic, visible readout of the biological capacitor finally discharging its trapped energy.
Wait, if my lower back is acting like a literal insulator, trapping a localized electrical field, how does the clinician know exactly where to put the needle? According to the fascial capacitor model, what is the protocol here?
Kimura and Kobayashi actually outline 5 specific sequential steps for clinicians to safely execute this discharge.
Okay, what's step one?
Step 1 is identify the stacking fascia. Instead of just pressing with their fingers and guessing or looking for trigger points in the muscle belly, modern clinicians use high-resolution ultrasound imaging. They use it to visibly locate the thickened, densified hyaluronic acid layers. They look for the glue.
They literally watch it on a screen.
Exactly. Step 2,
Mm.
target the dielectric layer. The needle must be guided to specifically pierce that sticky insulator layer. You don't want the needle just resting in the muscle belly. It has to hit the specific fascial plane.
So precision is everything. You can't just jab it in.
Absolute precision.
Mm-hmm.
Step 3, trigger the discharge. The clinician's goal is to elicit that local twitch response to instantly collapse the trapped electrical field. Sometimes they manipulate the needle slightly, just twisting it to generate that triboelectric friction we talked about.
To get that 6-volt spark.
Right. Step 4, provide immediate relief. Because that trapped electrical field was what was constantly gating the channels and irritating the nerve, the moment it discharges, patients typically feel an instantaneous, profound release from pain.
They just get off the table and say it feels like magic.
They do. We call this the phase 1 response. And then step 5, avoid intraneural placement. This is why the ultrasound is so important. The clinician must ensure the discharge happens in the extracellular fascial layers, not directly inside a major nerve bundle.
Oh, because that 6-volt lightning strike would fry the nerve.
Exactly. It could cause severe structural damage to the nerve given the voltage spike.
Okay, I have a major question here. Let's say I go to a highly trained clinician. They use the ultrasound. They find the stacking fascia in my shoulder. They insert the needle perfectly. I get the big twitch, and the pain vanishes instantly.
Sounds like a successful session.
It feels miraculous. But I'm going right back to the exact same desk job tomorrow. I'm going to hunch over my laptop. I'm going to stress about the exact same deadlines. Am I just going to re-glue my tissues in 24 hours? Doesn't the biological battery just charge right back up?
That is the trap that catches so many patients. And it is exactly why the needle poke is only half the story. The needle is just a reset button. You are absolutely right. If you only discharge the battery, but you do nothing to fundamentally change the chemical environment and physical structure of the tissue, it will absolutely restack and recharge.
So the pain will just come right back?
Yes. That immediate electrical release from the needle happens in seconds. But true, long-term tissue remodeling takes months. This brings us to what researchers call the fascial memory reset hypothesis.
Fascial memory reset. I like the sound of that. How do we permanently clear the hard drive? How do we keep the glue factory turned off?
To achieve durable, permanent relief, the physical architecture of the tissue must change. We have to look at something called a mechanoepigenetic timeline.
Okay, stop right there. Mechanoepigenetic. I know epigenetic means changing how our genes express themselves based on our environment. But how does mechanical pressure change my DNA expression?
Remember how we said the fascial web connects directly to the nucleus of your cells? The nucleus houses your DNA. When the clinician releases that tension with the needle, it stops the physical pulling on the nucleus. It creates a critical window of opportunity. Inside your cells, you have specific proteins called YAP and TAZ.
YAP and TAZ, they sound like a 90s hip-hop duo.
I know it does sound like a rap group, but in biology, YAP and TAZ are mechanotransducers. Their entire biological job is to sense mechanical stiffness in your tissue, travel into the nucleus, and tell your DNA what to do.
So they are the messengers.
Yes. When your fascia is stiff, glued, and pulling hard on the cell, YAP and TAZ are highly active. They go into the nucleus and signal the fasciocytes, which are the specialized fibroblasts that make fascia, to keep pumping out that thick, sticky hyaluronic acid to protect the area.
Because the body thinks it's under attack and needs to brace itself. It's building armor.
Exactly. It's an immune defense mechanism, essentially.
Mm.
But when the tension is suddenly released by the clinician's needle, YAP and TAZ deactivate. They retreat from the nucleus. They basically tell the cellular factory, hey, the mechanical emergency is over. You can stop producing the sticky glue.
So the recovery roadmap must happen in specific phases then, right? As the cells change their behavior over time.
Precisely. You have the early phase, which spans from minutes to a few days after a release. This is all about rehydration. The glued layers finally separate slightly, water rushes into the ground substance, and it physically washes out all the pain-causing inflammatory chemicals that were trapped there.
Just a total flush of the system.
Right. Then you enter the intermediate phase, which is days to weeks out. This is the true epigenetic reprogramming phase. This is where YAP and TAZ fully deactivate and stop the overproduction of the thick HA.
Okay, so the glue factory shuts down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And finally, you reach the long-term phase, which is weeks to months out. This is where the collagen fibers physically restructure and align normally. The ground substance returns to a healthy fluid gel, and you restore permanent, frictionless fascial glide.
Which highlights a really profound point. While a skilled clinician can provide that crucial spark to reset the system, kill the electrical field, and get you out of acute agony, you, the listener, are entirely responsible for the long-term tissue remodeling.
Absolutely. The clinician cannot remodel your tissue for you.
Right. You have to put in the daily work to change the internal environment, or YAP and TAZ are just going to panic tomorrow and turn the glue factory right back on.
The clinician opens the door, but you have to walk through it. And you do that through your daily habits.
So, to reset this deep fascial memory permanently, to avoid restacking the fascia, and to optimize this massive electrical network, we have to look at what you put into your body every single day. Let's dive into optimizing your fascial conductivity through diet and daily habits. Where do we even start?
The absolute non-negotiable foundation of fascial health is intracellular hydration. We mentioned that fascia is 70 to 80% water, but this is where quantum biology enters the picture. The water inside your cells, inside the fascial ground substance, is not just regular tap water.
It's not just a puddle of liquid.
No, it is not a random jumble of H2O molecules. It is known as structured water or exclusion zone water. This was heavily researched and discovered by Dr. Gerald Pollack. In this state, the water forms a highly organized crystalline lattice. It physically acts as a semiconductor to transmit those bioelectric signals we discussed.
Wait, so just chucking a gallon of filtered water from my fridge isn't going to fix my fascia if the water inside me isn't structured correctly? To use our earlier analogy, I need to plug my phone into a high-quality, grounded charger, not a frayed, cheap gas station wire.
That is an excellent way to look at it. Drinking volume is necessary, yes, but your body needs minerals and specific nutrients to actually hold that water inside the fascial gel, keeping those dielectric layers fluid and structured instead of sticky and chaotic. From a dietary perspective, you have to eat the building blocks of the collagen matrix.
Okay, let's get specific, because I want to build a real roadmap for people. What are those building blocks? We aren't just talking about taking a generic multivitamin, are we?
No, not at all. We are talking about targeted biochemical pathways. You need vitamin C, magnesium, zinc, copper, vitamin A, and manganese.
Okay, I want to challenge you on this, because everyone just lists vitamins like a grocery list, and it goes in one ear and out the other. What do these actually do? How does eating an orange or taking vitamin C actually stop my lower back fascia from tearing?
Fantastic question. Let's take vitamin C. Your body makes collagen out of amino acids, primarily proline and lysine. But to weave those amino acids into a strong triple helix fiber to make the fiber optic cable strong, those amino acids must undergo a chemical process called hydroxylation.
Hydroxylation. Okay.
Vitamin C is the absolute mandatory cofactor for the enzymes that perform that hydroxylation. Without adequate vitamin C, the collagen fibers literally unravel. They're weak, like wet spaghetti.
Oh, wow.
This is exactly what scurvy is. Scurvy isn't just a pirate disease. It's the systemic breakdown of your fascial web due to a lack of vitamin C. Your old wounds literally open up because the glue devolves. So you need vitamin C to build the structural integrity.
That is fascinating. The vitamin actually weaves the cable. What about the others, like copper and zinc?
Copper is essential for cross-linking the collagen fibers, which gives them their strength. Without copper, the fibers just slide past each other and tear. Zinc is critical for cell division and repairing damaged tissue. And magnesium is vital for muscle relaxation, which takes the tension off the fascial system. You also want to prioritize high-fiber and color-rich foods, which provide the antioxidants needed to protect that collagen from free radical damage.
Okay, so we are weaving strong cables.
Yeah.
What should we be avoiding? Like, what frays the charger cable? What destroys the structure of our internal water?
You need to aggressively avoid environmental chemical stressors that degrade collagen. A major culprit in our sources is glyphosate, the active ingredient in many modern agricultural pesticides.
Weed killer.
Exactly. Glyphosate can literally substitute for the amino acid glycine during collagen synthesis. It basically tricks your body into using a toxic chemical to build your tissue, resulting in brittle, dysfunctional fascia.
That is horrifying.
It is. But perhaps even more surprisingly, you need to heavily regulate your exposure to artificial light at night.
Hold on a second. You are telling me that staring at my phone screen at 11 p.m. scrolling social media is negatively affecting the connective tissue in my hamstring. How does light from my phone reach my legs?
It comes back to mitochondria and the physics of water. The structured, highly organized water in your cells is largely generated by the heat and energy output of your mitochondria, the powerhouses of your cells.
Right, the energy factories.
And your mitochondria are deeply biologically tied to your circadian rhythms. Exposure to artificial blue light at night completely disrupts mitochondrial function. When mitochondria become dysfunctional, they stop producing the infrared heat necessary to structure the water in your fascia.
The water loses its charge.
The water loses its crystalline lattice, becoming disorganized. It makes the ground substance less conductive and vastly more prone to stacking and gluing. Poor sleep literally, physically dehydrates your fascial matrix on a quantum level.
That is wild. Scrolling at midnight makes your tissue sticky. Okay, so we hydrate, we get our vitamin C and trace minerals, we eat organic to avoid glyphosate, and we sleep in total darkness. What about grounding? A lot of our sources, particularly the research of biophysicist Dr. James Oshman, emphasize the practice of earthing.
Grounding is vital for optimizing your fascial conductivity. Remember, the Earth's surface has a virtually limitless supply of free, negatively charged electrons. Because your fascia is a continuous conductive electrical network from your feet to your head, when you walk barefoot on natural surfaces, grass, damp sand, soil, your body acts like a highly conductive sponge.
It just soaks up the energy.
It absorbs these free electrons through the sweat glands and nerve endings in the soles of your feet, pulling them up into the fascial web. These electrons act as powerful, natural antioxidants. They neutralize positively charged free radicals, quell systemic inflammation, and restore electrical balance to the entire system. It is literally recharging your biological battery from the Earth's grid.
Okay, so we've got the internal environment prepped. The body is properly hydrated, we have the right biochemical nutrients weaving our collagen, and we are electrically grounded. But as we discussed with the capacitor model, we still need to physically move this water through the tissues every single day. We need to actively prevent that static charge from building up while we live our modern lives. Let's get into the practical, step-by-step application. We are going to build the ultimate daily fascial schedule for you, starting from the moment you wake up, through your workday, and into the evening.
Structure is the key to resetting deep fascial memory. You want a daily routine that consistently maximizes tissue hydration, actively prevents the dielectric accumulation, that sticky MLCC stacking we talked about, and maintains effortless fascial glide throughout the entire day.
Let's start with the morning routine, activation and hydration. The alarm goes off. What is the very first thing I should do before I even look at my phone?
Before you stretch, before you check your emails, you must hydrate the system. But don't just drink water. Drink 1 to 2 mugs of hot water.
Hot water. Why not ice water? I always hear about cold plunges in ice water to wake up the nervous system.
Cold water causes tissues and blood vessels to rapidly constrict. It makes the gel thicker. From a biophysical standpoint, hot water improves internal fluidity. It stimulates digestion, but more importantly, it begins the process of hydrating and warming the fascial ground substance from the inside out.
Like warming up a car engine in the winter.
Exactly. It warms the gel, making it less viscous. Once you are internally hydrated and warmed, you need to engage in fluid movements.
What kind of movement? Should I just bend over and touch my toes? Do some jumping jacks?
No. Traditional linear stretching, like just bending straight forward to touch your toes or pulling your heel to your glute, is not optimal for waking up fascia. Fascia is a 3D, multi-directional web. Pulling it in one straight line is inefficient. You need to engage in 3 specific movement patterns: spirals, diagonals, and full body stretches.
Spirals. How do I stretch in a spiral?
Think about how a cat or a dog wakes up and stretches. They don't do isolated hamstring stretches. They lengthen their entire body from paw to tail, they arch, and they twist. They are intuitively maximizing fascial glide.
So, what is a practical human equivalent for this? How do we stretch like a cat?
Ancient movement practices like Qigong or Dao Yin are absolutely perfect here. They involve slow, mindful stretching with deep, diaphragmatic breathing. The slow, intentional nature of these movements safely and gently activates the piezoelectric charge in your collagen without triggering a stress response.
Walk me through a movement.
Sure. As you gently spiral your arms, twisting your wrists and your shoulders simultaneously while you shift your weight in diagonal patterns, you are mechanically wringing out the fascial tissue. Think of it like wringing out a wet sponge.
Okay, I can picture that.
This pumping action actively distributes that hot, structured water evenly through the fascial planes, separating any areas that started to glue together overnight. It is the perfect, scientifically sound way to turn the electrical grid on for the day.
I love that visual of wringing out the sponge. And, we were talking earlier about how TCM mapped the meridians. It's fascinating that Qigong and Tai Chi were essentially performing quantum biomechanics thousands of years before we had electron microscopes to see the liquid crystal nature of fascia.
Right. They knew exactly what they were doing.
They knew exactly how to move the qi, the bioelectricity, just by observing how the body felt and responding to it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, ancient practitioners intuitively understood the concept of tensegrity in fluid dynamics. They didn't need to know the word piezoelectric to know that slow, spiraling movements generated energy, vitality, and heat. They felt the bioelectricity, even if they used different vocabulary to describe it.
Okay, so we are warmed up, hydrated, and humming with electricity. We've had our hot water and done our Qigong spirals. Now it is 10 a.m. and we are sitting at a desk under fluorescent lights. How do we maintain this glide during the day and stop the glue factory from turning on?
The daytime is all about maintenance and avoiding what the literature calls fascial hypervigilance. First, you must maintain intentional, dynamic posture.
Dynamic posture, meaning I shouldn't just sit rigidly straight.
Right. When you slump forward in a static position for hours, or even sit perfectly still in a good posture, you create localized areas of intense mechanical stress, usually in the neck, shoulders, and lower back. That relentless mechanical stress is exactly what signals the YAP and TAZ proteins to panic and start producing sticky hyaluronic acid.
So stillness equals glue?
Yes. You have to break up your posture. You cannot sit perfectly still. You need micro movements. Shifting your weight, rolling your shoulders, gently twisting your spine while you type.
What about physical tools? I see people with massage guns and rollers at their desks all the time now.
This is a great time to engage in 40 hertz vibration therapy. Using specialized tools like the Melty Method rollers or small, targeted vibration devices set to exactly 40 hertz has been shown in clinical literature to stimulate neurological plasticity and drastically improve lymphatic and fluid flow through the fascia.
Why 40 hertz specifically? Is there something magic about that number?
40 hertz actually matches the gamma wave frequency in the brain, which is associated with deep focus and healing. But on a mechanical level, 40 cycles per second is the perfect frequency to agitate the water in the ground substance without causing tissue damage.
So it vibrates the water so it doesn't settle and turn to glue.
Exactly. Just a few minutes of 40 hertz vibration under your feet or on your forearms while at your desk can keep the dielectric layers from getting sticky. And of course, take barefoot grounding breaks.
Right, the earth thing we talked about.
Step outside on your lunch break, put your bare feet on the grass or dirt for 5 minutes, and physically pull some free electrons into your system to neutralize the positive charge building up from your computer and your stress.
It's like a midday software update and battery recharge for your connective tissue. All right, so the workday's done. We survived the dusk. We are transitioning into the evening sequence. We want to prep the body for sleep so the tissue can remodel. This is all about discharge and recovery. What are we doing?
The evening routine must be scientifically designed to undo the mechanical stress and electrical accumulation of the day. You want to engage in sustained recovery movement. Practices like yin yoga, restorative yoga, or somatic floor therapies are ideal. Crucially, you want to do this in a cooler room temperature.
Wait, I thought heat was good. I thought hot yoga was supposed to be the ultimate way to loosen up tight tissues.
Heat makes muscles feel highly relaxed and stretchy. But if you want to actually remodel deep fascia and reset its memory, you have to target the collagen. A cooler ambient temperature prevents you from bypassing the fascia.
I don't follow. How does heat bypass fascia?
If the room is too hot, the muscle is so relaxed that it does all the stretching. The mechanical load never reaches the stiff fascial layers. In a cooler room, the muscle is slightly more toned, which forces the mechanical load deeply into the connective tissue network. In yin yoga, you don't flow quickly. You hold poses for a very long time, anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes per posture. You must focus on long, sustained holds.
Why do the holds have to be so incredibly long? Who has the patience for 5 minutes in one stretch?
You have to have patience if you want to melt the glue. We are relying on a fascinating biophysical property of the fascial ground substance called thixotropy.
Thixotropy. That is a fantastic word. What does it actually mean?
Thixotropy is the property of certain gels to become completely fluid when they are subjected to sustained pressure, shear force, or agitation over time. The best analogy is ketchup in a glass bottle.
Oh, I definitely know this struggle. You turn the bottle upside down and nothing comes out. It's totally stuck.
Exactly. Inside the bottle, the ketchup is acting like a thick, solid gel. It's stuck. But if you tap the side of the bottle, applying steady, rhythmic pressure, it suddenly transforms into a liquid and flows out perfectly.
It literally changes physical states.
Yes. And your fascial ground substance behaves exactly the same way. The gentle, sustained, multi-minute pressure of a yin yoga pose or a somatic stretch transforms that thick, sticky, stacked gel state back into a highly fluid, liquid state. We call it a sol state. It physically melts the dielectric insulator.
And this is where we can use tools at home, right? Like foam rollers or those large, elastic, stretchies bands I've seen.
Yes, absolutely. Tools like stretch ease bands are fantastic for evening recovery because they provide continuous elastic resistance that perfectly mimics the physical properties of fascia itself.
How do you use them?
When you wrap these bands around your feet and torso to apply gentle, sustained pressure and slowly stretch into diagonal patterns on the floor, you are physically wringing out the trapped electrical charge that accumulated from the day's stress.
Yeah.
You are squeezing the sponge dry of old, stagnant fluid.
Preparing it for sleep.
Yes. This thixotropic melting process is what actively prevents the fascia from stacking overnight while you are asleep and immobile.
So, by holding these specific poses, applying gentle thixotropic pressure, and breathing deeply, we are literally melting the cellular glue and discharging the biological static electricity before we even get into bed. That is incredible. We are paving the way for the YAP and TAZ proteins to stay deactivated while we sleep, allowing true deep tissue remodeling to happen over the weeks and months to come.
That's exactly the goal.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you go about your life tomorrow? Let's recap the profound journey we just took. We started by completely redefining your body's so-called packing material as a highly sophisticated, high-speed, liquid crystal electrical grid that reaches all the way into your DNA. We learned that when we stop moving or when we get physically or emotionally stressed, this web gets dangerously sticky. It stacks up, turning into a biological multi-layer ceramic capacitor that traps electrical charge, violently yanking open the ion channels of your nerves and causing relentless chronic pain.
And we explored the clinical interventions. We saw how clinicians can act almost like electricians, using an ultrasound-guided needle to short-circuit that trapped charge, generating a massive triboelectric spark for immediate relief, resulting in that incredible, visible, local twitch response.
But most importantly, the biggest takeaway today is that the long-term fix is completely 100% in your hands. You have to reset that deep fascial memory by turning off the cellular glue factories. And you do that by changing the environment of your tissue through structuring your internal water with proper hydration, getting the exact biochemical nutrients to weave strong collagen, avoiding toxic pesticides and artificial blue light that ruins your mitochondria, pulling free electrons directly from the earth, and committing to a structured daily schedule. A schedule of hot water and spiraling Qigong movements in the morning, 40 hertz vibration therapy to survive the workday, and sustained thixotropic melting yin yoga stretches at night.
It truly is a complete paradigm shift in how we view the human organism. We are not clunky machines made of separate isolated parts, bones, muscles, nerves. We are a singular, continuous, living, breathing, liquid crystal web.
It's beautiful, really.
It is, which leaves us with one final, awe-inspiring thought to ponder. We mentioned the research by Penrose and Hamroff, but newer studies by researchers like Dr. John Barnes show that the microtubule networks inside our fascial cells don't just conduct electricity. They actually emit and receive biophotons.
Biophotons. Wait, are you saying we are literally emitting particles of light? We are glowing on a cellular level?
Yes. Our fascial systems are literally transmitting both light and electrical information throughout our bodies simultaneously. This is how cells communicate instantaneously across vast distances in the body. But it raises a profound, almost philosophical question. If your fascia is a highly sensitive communication antenna, and the physical tension you hold alters its conductivity and structure, could the chronic tension, the trapped emotional stress, and the sticky glue in your posture actually be altering the biological light you emit into the world around you? If your fascia is constantly broadcasting your internal state, what signal is your posture broadcasting to the world right now?
That is a wild, beautiful thought to leave off on. Are we broadcasting chaotic static from a broken capacitor, or are we broadcasting a clear, coherent, luminous signal? It all comes down to how you treat your web. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden electrical network of your body. Keep moving in spirals, stay deeply hydrated, get your bare feet in the dirt, and keep diving deep.